Reddit, when did doing the right thing horribly backfire? I was in an extremely weird and once in a lifetime kind of car accident where I was supposed to be not at fault. I really don't want to go into detail, but another car hit me going twice the speed limit, sending us both rolling down into a ditch. I got out through the windshield since it was shattered and was able to cut the airbag. The other car was in much worse shape and was on fire. I ran up to see if the driver was okay, but she was falling in and out of consciousness. Her car was upside down and roof was caved in, pressing her into the seat. The seatbelt was tight around her and her airbag wasn't deflating. I struggled with the door and was able to get her out as the fire spread onto her. I remember passing out a little after I was able to put out the fire on her legs. Woke up in the ambulance. Broken leg and concussion. EMTs said I was only able to save her from all the adrenaline coursing through my system. The police that wrote the report found her at fault and said I was hero, but no good deed goes unpunished. She had first-degree burns on her legs and face and had super cheap butt insurance. She ended up suing me and dragging me into a 4-year legal process that not only cost my insurance thousands, but had me spending money on legal fees and lost wages from constantly having to go to court. It was finally settled because somehow all she needed was to prove I was at least 1% at fault and my insurance folded. She was awarded my full liability, $200,000. Plus $25,000 that I'm on the hook for personally. I was barely able to get my car paid off and whatever was left in my pocket for a new car had to go to her. It's been 6 years since the accident and I still owe about $12,000, but I'm trying to avoid paying that. The last time I talked to my attorney after she was awarded damages, he said something that I'll always think back on and wish I could have changed my actions. He said if he was in my shoes and knew the outcome, he would have left her in there to burn. I was in the parking lot of a store one time when a lady dropped a bunch of stuff off her cart. She was having trouble picking up a box of bulk items. I told her that I would help her and we both picked the box up and put it in the trunk of her car. She then sprayed me with pepper spray and screamed. I was left confused at why I was attacked as she almost ran me over driving out of there. A friend of mine was walking down the street late at night when he saw a man lying in an alleyway. The guy looked as though he'd been really hurt and was asking for help. My friend approached him to find out how badly he'd been hurt and what he needed to do. When he did, a bunch of guys ambushed him, beat him up and stole all his money. The whole thing had been set up just to lure him into a vulnerable situation. It's freaking terrible to take advantage of someone's kindness like that. I offered my seat to an elderly lady in the bus. Turned out she wasn't that old and felt offended, so she screamed at me. At which point you tell her to F off and say, "Fine, I guess you don't deserve any courtesy," and proceed to sit back down. I was really invested in the company I worked for and loved working there. They got bought out by another company who treated employees like dirt. About a month in, we were having server issues with one of our migrated servers and I stayed an extra 8 hours to help get it back up and running before the next work day. Then the next day I worked my regular 9 hours, our lunch break, and then came back in at 10 PM and worked an extra 4 hours to help resolve an issue with a client in China. On the third day I was so tired I slept through my alarm and was probably about 2 hours late. My boss had a fit telling me how unprofessional it was to show up late and if I did it again I would be fired. He also pulled the "I don't want to hear any of your excuses, just listen to me" rant, which I find to be incredibly unprofessional. I worked salary and wasn't compensated for any of my time. Thankfully I no longer work there. Gave a one-eyed homeless guy $5. He wandered off, apparently telling other homeless guys his good fortune. Homeless guys began melting out of the scenery asking for their $5. I realized my mistake at that point and stopped being generous. They apparently turned their anger on one eye and stabbed him for his $5. I found out when questioned by police. Well, shit. I accidentally walked out of my local deli without paying for my soda, so being the good person that I am, I went back in to pay for it. 2 minutes later I come back out to find that my bike had been stolen. In 7th grade, gave a choking girl the Heimlich maneuver, saved her life. No one else knew how, and I was suspended for 5 days for gender harassment. Her parents tried to sue, but it went nowhere. When I was young I was able to save money very well. No bank or anything, just a wooden box under my bed that used to hold dominoes. Every week I would cash my paycheck, put the vast majority in the box, and keep a little pocket money for myself. When I was 18 I worked at a video store. Everyone who worked there were very good friends. One day we were told by our boss, a really great guy named Drew, that he had come down with stomach cancer. I talked to him afterwards and was sad to hear that the store's terrible insurance was causing Drew to have to choose between treatments or paying his rent. Drew was gay and his family had disowned him, so he had no help. I thought about it for a few days and decided I would help him out. I agreed to loan him money so he could pay his rent. He would pay me back when able and everything would be great. I gave him $3,000 I had saved since I was 12. A little over 3 actually, but who is counting, right? Cut to 5 months later. I come to work one night to see Drew being dragged out by the police. Turns out he had a massive coke problem and had been stealing from the store. He was such a good guy I actually fought for him at work for a month or so until I saw the evidence. I also learned that he never had cancer. It was a scam he had used on several friends of his so him and his boyfriend could get high. I have never been able to get back to where I was financially. I am not sure what changed. Maybe because I got a bank account. Maybe emotionally it messed me up. I am not sure. I have $60 to my name now. One thing is for sure, I have never trusted people the same since. Not sure anything will be able to give me that back. This gave me the worst gut-wrenching feeling out of most of the others here. Sorry to hear that someone would take advantage of your kindness like that. My best friend was going through a messy breakup with his girlfriend. She was P, so she stole a bunch of his clothes and his cat, and drove off to her apartment. We jumped into my car and gave chase. She pulled into her apartment complex and parked before realizing we were behind her, so I pulled up behind her and blocked her car in. She started screaming at me to move my car, and I said frick no while my friend called the cops. He had had the cat for 8 years and was desperately attached to it. He had only had the girlfriend for 2 years. The cops get there, and they talk to everyone. They figure out the situation. They tell the girlfriend to return the cat and the clothes. Then an officer comes over to me and says he's considering arresting me for false imprisonment. My freaking jaw dropped. Normally, I'm super respectful and cool with the cops, but it was just too much for me to swallow. Are you kidding me right now? Not at all. You put your car behind hers, making it impossible for her to leave. You kept her there against her will, and that's a crime. She could have gotten out of the car and walked away at any time. I was only stopping her from feeling the scene with stolen property. Oh, are you a police officer now? Is that your job? I stared at him sullenly, a look of you can't be freaking serious on my face. I guess we don't do anything this time, but next time you shouldn't get involved in disputes like this. It's a matter for the police, and you should leave it up to us. Christ, what a freaking mess that night was. Absolutely refusing to let a drunk buddy drive his wife home. Apparently, I'm no fun anymore. There was a guy at work who would always talk about bringing a gun to work and showing our boss he won't take it anymore and he can understand why those people shoot up their place of employment. I told my boss about it, and after an investigation, they fired the guy. I think I did the right thing, and maybe it saved the lives of people at work. But I just found out that he killed himself last week because of it. A work friend of mine was going through a nasty divorce. Even though it wasn't finalized, he was seeing another woman at work on the down low, but everyone at the office had suspicions. Having dealt with divorce before, I sent him an email explaining that people were talking and he may want to be more discreet as to not exacerbate things with his divorce. He told the down low girl what I had said. She told me to mind my business. I explained over and over again that I meant well and it was nothing against her. She convinced him not to talk to me anymore and we haven't spoken since. TLDR. Gave advice about divorce, lost a friend. If I was your friend I wouldn't have told the girl that you gave me the advice. Just that hey, people are starting to talk. I overheard them. We should lay low for a bit until the divorce is final. This protects both of us. Your once friend is kind of dumb. My wife and I were flying from Montreal to Vienna 2 years ago. We were flying coach, so, of course, we're the last aboard. I see a lady sleeping in the waiting room at the gate. Good Samaritan that I like to think I am. I gently wake her and ask her if she's going to Vienna. She says that, yes she is. So I tell her that it's final boarding. Away we go and she gets on behind us. As we're taking our seats, she goes by us and we smell the alcohol vapors. Oh number. Anyway, we get our seat belts on, and they start pushing the plane out to the taxiway. The flight attendants go through how the cabin checking seat belts, but when they get to drunk lady, they can't wake her up. So overcome all the flight attendants, shaking her, trying to wake her up. Finally they start calling for a doctor on the flight. Someone speaks up and is a nurse. They try and fail. So, back the plane goes to the gate. On come the M's and haul her out. 2 hours later we're sitting at the gate while they try to find her luggage to pull off the flight. I sank deep into my seat and hope like heck no one saw me wake her up to get on the flight. TLDR. Woke up a woman who was going to miss her flight. Got the flight delayed by almost 3 hours when they couldn't wake her up for pre-flight check. Went to get a pap smear while still living at home with my mother. Had recently gotten my own cell phone and asked them to call it instead of my house, as it was my most recent contact number and the easiest way to reach me about my personal medical issues. They called my house to tell me they had an abnormal culture, so as I sat in the other room, trying to avoid my mother and figure out exactly what they were telling me, I had her in my ear asking what's that all about. So I was honest, apparently I had an abnormal pap. I need to go back and get a second one. Apparently they think I have HPV. She instantly explodes into you have genital warts. Oh my god. And that kind of a tirade, berating me for being unsafe, what if you've infected us and things like that. Despite her being a surgical tech previously, and knowing that HPV does not work like that. Your brother may use your razors, what if he gets warts? Yes. My manly little brother is going to use my intuition razor with the girly block of soap and the big butt handle to what? Shave his face? His pubes? It ultimately resulted in me getting kicked out. Oh, and the bonus? False positive. My mother kicked me out for being forthcoming and honest with her about my private life, after years of ensuring me that I could always come to her and to never be embarrassed. Needless to say, she was wrong. Sorry. She was wrong to do that. I had to pack all that I could into 2 tiny suitcases and wait over 6 hours for someone to come pick me up and to take me away. Things are strained now because of some other family issues, and while I love my mother, I resent her for that. A false positive, HPV free, my mother a B or a C, or crazy. While I would never say those things to her face, I do have to admit, I've thought that to myself and felt terribly guilty about it. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who took time to read or even write back. Some of you were confusing, but most of you were incredibly supportive and made me realize I still haven't properly dealt with this or some other situations that have arisen in my life because of her. As to how could you love your mother after this kind of questions, I don't know. I honestly don't know. She's my mother. I love her. I just sometimes don't like her or agree with her. We are all human and we all make mistakes. Overall, I have learned that I'm much stronger than previously thought, and I've also learned how I would approach this situation if when I have children of my own. I once refused to frick a girl because she was, at the time, super messed up on drugs and I just didn't think it was right. She couldn't even remember who I was. I stayed the night to take care of her instead. Next day, she told all our mutual friends that I debauched her. It didn't end well for me. I was about 17 when this went down. First off, just to help with context, in my province once you get your license to drive by yourself, you still have to wait 15 months before you can have more than one person in your vehicle with you between 1 and 5 am. So, I go to this fundraiser party out in the country with my buddy. It's the country so most underage people can get alcohol anyway. So after, I'm about to drive me and my friend home when I see 2 girls from my school going to get a ride with since drunk butthole. I step in, offer them a ride, since I'm sober. On the way back to our town, a cop pulls me over and gives me a ticket for too many people in my car since it turns out I was at 14 months and 21 days. I'm furious with this since I was doing the right thing. Do I go to court to fight it? I explain I was trying to help them and I saved their lives. The drunken butthole ended up rolling his truck. Judge says I did the right thing. clears my record and makes me party the minimum amount for the ticket, which was a lot less than I could have been. Happy ending? Not quite. About 3 months later, I get a call from the provincial insurance company for me to go see them about the ticket. I go see them and once again explain that I was trying to help. After about 30 minutes of discussion between the 3 people sitting in, they inform me that although my intentions might have been good, I acted irresponsibly and stupidly, endangering my life, the girl lives and everyone else on the road. They then classified me as a dangerous driver, fined me $500, suspended my license for 3 months, charged me a couple $100 to renew my license. It will take me another 2 years to get to the provincial average, and gave me a 5-year probation period where if I get any type of ticket for no matter what, my license is gone for 2 years. Sorry for any mistakes. I'm submitting this on my new phone. I'm from the prairies, and everything motor vehicle related, licensing, registration, is all run by government branch. I thought the ticket given to me by the RCMP in the Crown cleared my record, but the province can still jump in and mess with my license, insurance, etc., which they did. The cost of keeping your license every year is based on a point system, where year of good driving, no at-fault accidents or tickets, gives you a +1. Everyone starts at $0, $45 a year, and accidents tickets put you in the minuses. So it's more expensive. They decided to give me a -10, so my license cost me over $500 that year. The silver lining to this is when you're minus, if you're good for a year, they'll bump you up 2 or 3 points, so I'm going to be at 0 either this year or next. TLDR. Saved 2 girls' lives, got my license revoked and I was fined. I trusted a friend who said he was clean from his drug addiction. My friends in college had to kill and dissect mice. There were too many authorized mice for the class, so they got the leftover little dude and carefully revived him, gave him water, stroked his fur, and then took him outside and released him on the lawn outside the cafeteria. Free crumbs for life. He made it several yards before a bird swooped down and grabbed him. The circle of life. At my last retail management job, I was cashing out one of the cashiers and her till was $300 short, on the nose. Normally there wasn't that much cash in there, but someone had paid for a crib in cash about 20 minutes before, and since she was leaving soon, me and the store manager, decided to just let it go. So I tell her she's short, she has no idea where it is. Empties her pockets, her idea, nothing. Shows me her purse, nothing. Look in all the parts of the drawer, nothing. Look through the tape with all the transactions, nothing for no sales or anything. Just disappeared. This is where my good deed goes punished. The cash drawers have locks that could be opened, but we didn't have keys for them. I grab every random key I can find in the office and try them. Finally, with a little jimmying, a maintenance key opens the drawer. I try it a few times, works, show my manager, and while it doesn't find the money, it's a clue. At least we know there is a key that will open the drawers and we can fix that, is what I'm thinking. I come in the next day, get called into the office with my boss and the store's owners. I figure they want to talk about it. What I figured out, maybe give me a medal. Nope. Fired me. For A, leaving the cash in there, even though my boss said to, and B, compromising the integrity of the cash by having a key lying around. That is, I found how it might have happened. My manager walked me out and his final words were sorry, but we had to punish someone for something after this. I was walking to the garage through the main lobby of the hospital work at, I'm a nurse, and saw a woman sprawled across the floor with family around her. I ran over to help and asked, "Are you okay?" Good lord. That woman sits straight up and starts screaming. Did she just ask me if I'm okay? Did she just ask me if I am ok, and proceeds to throw punches at me? They all missed even though I was in WTF mode. Apparently, she just found out a family member passed away and had fallen to the ground from shock. I was waiting for bus when I saw a middle-aged woman who looked really sad and was apparently crying. Being the socially awkward person I am, I struggled with myself for a bit because I wanted to help her, but I didn't have the courage to. When I finally managed to ask her, in my kindest tone, if she needed any help, she started screaming at me and told me I had to stop bothering her. Turned out she was mentally unstable. I know it's not exactly a horrible backfire, but it was quite sad to me, especially because of all the efforts that took me to bring up the courage to try and help her. Honestly, it's great that you managed to bring yourself to ask. Definitely forward movement, if you're struggling with shyness. My best friend really liked this girl and he was trying to get her attention, so he asked me what would get my attention. I gave him advice, boosted his ego. He was really appreciative of my help, said thanks so many times. Then I didn't hear from him for months. I'd send messages, I called, and nothing. Then I saw him on the street. I said hi. He ignored me and kept walking. Naturally, I was very confused and hurt and didn't know what happened. So I started asking my other friends. Apparently he was still talking to them, so it was just me. On my final attempt to talk to him, about 7 months later, he told me that he was dating the girl that he asked my advice on. He told me she really hates you. Whoa, thanks, considering I've never even met the chick. So basically, this girl told him to never talk to me again if he wanted to date her. He chose her. I haven't spoken to him in years. TLDR. I pushed a friend to ask out this girl. She makes him never speak to me again. Your friend isn't, but I have a lot of close friends who are girls and I would never pick some new chick over their friendship. If a girl has a problem with any of my friends, then she's a no-go. I saved a bird that was stuck in a fence. It was a wooden privacy fence and the bird had managed to get its head stuck in between 2 boards of the fence. All I had to do was grab the bird and lift it up above the boards. Anyway, it pooped on me. This guy was saying very depraved things to my girlfriend and I told him to apologize. After it was clear he wouldn't, I tried to walk away and devalue his opinion, but he followed me, insisting we fight. After dodging 2 of his swings, I knock him in the bro, cutting him open and ending the fight. Later on though, his friends found me at the bar down the street and beat the living crap out of me. After you beat someone up, go lay low, not to a bar. My laptop had just died when I found a MacBook Pro at a park with no one around to claim it. I hung around the laptop for about half an hour and no one came forward. I tried to find out the owner, but it was password protected and I didn't want to mess with it. My wife, being the ethical angel on my shoulder, convinced me to turn it in with the caveat that I could keep it if no one claimed it. I took it to the police station. Before I handed it over, I asked about their found property policy and the desk person said, 90 days and, if it isn't claimed, it's yours. Sweet. I might get a free laptop without the guilt of stealing it from someone. So I went out to my car and got the laptop and turned it in. The detective saw the laptop and said, "Oh, not computers. We destroy those after 90 days. God dang it. You may have gotten played. It's not very likely, but maybe someone there just wanted a new laptop." A lawyer friend of mine represented a guy, pulled over for speeding or something. Asked by the officer, "Do you have any firearms?" The man responds honestly, "Well, I have one locked up at home but not on me." Turns out, since the time that he legally purchased and registered his firearm, Congress had passed a law making it a federal felony for anyone ever convicted of domestic assault to own or possess a firearm. Problem is, even though the Commonwealth had a list of people convicted of domestic assault and a list of people with registered firearms, nobody let our guy know that when he answered this question a bit too honestly, he was confessing to a federal felony with a minimum sentence of 5 years in the pen. I let another driver get in front of me in the fast lane when I could have sped up and blocked him. He sped up to about 80 miles per hour and a half mile down the road from me he rear-ended a car that blew a tire and wrecked. I did not check the news to see if anyone died and I never will. That's not your fault. It's the other driver's fault for driving like an butthole. I walked out of a bar and saw a man and a woman assaulting a homeless man. The homeless guy was about 5 feet 4 inches and about 110 pounds and he was already down on his knees. The man and woman were both Samoan from their looks, so they were big, very big. She was about 6 feet 1 inches and about 220 and her male companion was really, really big, about 6 feet 5 inches and over 300 pounds. I ran up to them and told them to stop, which was really a big mistake on my part. I should have just yelled police or something to get them to stop. but hindsight is 20/20. The woman came after me and her friend tried to flank me, which is super dangerous for me at this point. I am 5 minutes and 10 seconds and 200 pounds and can handle myself, but this is quickly becoming something that I cannot handle. I pulled my knife before she could get to me and her friend could get behind me. Her big companion saw that I was not fricking around now and that I will not go down without a serious fight. As a side note here to anyone who is assaulted, never go down in a street fight. You are defenseless and can easily be very, very hurt, crippled, or killed. Real life is not the movies and people do not stop beating you because you are defenseless. On with the story. The big Samoan guy grabbed her and held her and said that I had a knife and to let me leave, and I do. I jog the heck out of there and I am about a block away when I hear a loud yell. As I spin around I see the woman running full speed at me and I just have enough time to get my hands up and spin her into the street and her boyfriend about 50 yards behind her at a full run toward me also. She starts swinging at me hard, not like some dainty girl, but for real trying to knock me out. Remember, she outweighs me by 20 pounds and I have her huge guy friend now barreling down on me from behind. I decide to knock her out and I unload everything I have into her jaw. She goes down instantly and is out cold. I turn to face her boyfriend who I know about 10 yards away and I see him just stop cold and look at her laying in the street. He just walks past me and picks up her head and looks up at me. At this very moment some guys who saw me basically just knock some girl out, without any context, yell something and start running toward me. They are about a block away. The big Samoan guy looks at me with a really sad expression like he is really sorry for everything and just says run. And I do. I freaking run like someone is trying to kill me because these guys who saw me hit her are freaking coming to kick my butt and there are a bunch of them. I run to my car and I get the heck out of there. I get away and I have never told a single person about this incident until right now. I have never been so scared as I was that night. If you and the big Samoan guy became buddies or like life-bound companions through this, it would be great. I had two good friends who dated for a very long time and fought like miserable spouses. We all know that couple, so they finally break up and the dude has to move out. I didn't want to get involved in their messy breakup, so I declined him when he asked to stay with me. Fast forward a few days and he gets kicked out of his friend's house, who lives with his mom, and can't go home to his parents because of his new job, so I begrudgingly say yes because I know I would hope for the same generosity in that position. A few weeks go by with no drama and when I have to go out of town for 2 weeks I'm glad to have someone watch the apartment. My landlord calls me a few days later saying my shower leaked and flooded the downstairs apartment, causing over $2,000 in damage to both my apartment and the downstairs one. My friend denies the whole thing, will not admit he did anything wrong, and also refuses to help me pay for it. I got kicked out, never got my security and had to pay an additional $1,000 because of a clause in the lease saying it was my responsibility to maintain all plumbing. TLDR. No good deed goes unpunished. Maintaining the plumbing is things like making sure the drains and toilet don't clog. If the shower was leaking due to a leaky pipe behind the wall or in the drain, that is not your responsibility. You probably could have contested that. So here is my story. It was Christmas Eve night a few years back in Kansas City, Missouri. There was considerable snowfall and the city was having one of our worst winters in years. I was leaving my girl's house around 11 PM who lived about 8 minutes away from where I stayed. Normally this would be a quick zip down Blue Park and I would be home, but there was already about 2.5 inches of snow and my car was a beater, but I was managing. As I am heading down the road I see a guy and his kid, I crap you not, without a coat on, standing in front of a car in a liquor store parking lot. Now I could give a crap honestly if an adult got himself in trouble. Normally I would keep on going, but I honestly felt bad for the kid and he had to be cold with no coat and all. So anyhow I pull up and ask if he needs a jump. "No dog, I got a bad starter, it fricks up when it's cold," the man replies. After I figure out if there's nothing I can help with, I ask if he would like me to call someone. "Nah homie, but if you could give me a ride to my house that'd be cool as heck." His street was about 3 streets back down the road, so I figure no big deal. Him and his kid huddle in the car. At this point I notice the man reeks of marijuana and is probably high. Now the important thing to remember in this story is that the main street I was on was an emergency snow route, meaning it had been pre-treated and the plows had already ran through it. This of course makes the snow at the entrances to side streets higher and a bit more packed, a fact I hadn't really considered until I turned into his street and got my front two tires stuck completely in snow. When it was clear I was stuck and couldn't go forward or backwards, the man said, "Ah crap, my bad man. My house is pretty close from here, good looking out though," and then proceeded to get out of my car and walk to his front door. A front door I could see from my car that was stuck. He did not offer to help me get my car unstuck. Not that we could have with the two of us. Nor did he offer to let me come in and wait for a tow truck. I ended up spending Christmas morning that year hanging out at a 7/11 for about 6.5 hours waiting on a tow truck. TLDR, when in doubt remember the 285th rule of acquisition, and frick snow. Whoa, the 285th rule really is no good deed goes unpunished. Nice. I was at a club and saw my friend's girlfriend sitting in a booth, not looking so great. I decided to go over to help. I told my friend he should probably take her home and helped her to start walking outside. She then threw up all over my sports jacket. At that point, I had vomit all over me and the bouncer wanted her gone ASAP, so I had to leave the club in a hurry. In all the excitement, I forgot that I had left my tab open, which at this club required both your driver's license and credit card. By the time I realized this, I was about 25 miles away with no hope of going back. I called another of my friends who was still there to close it for me. He called back to say that they didn't have my ID or credit card, but that the bartender had given him someone else's ID instead. He was pretty drunk, so I wasn't sure what was going on. I later called the club about 20 times and went back there, but no ID or credit card. I saw a woman litter right next to her trash can and I was walking behind her. As I thought I was out of her peripherals, I picked up the trash and threw it away. She apparently saw me and for some unknown reason became belligerent as if I had just insulted her. She then proceeded to try and hand me more trash whilst exclaiming fairly irately that if litter bothered me so much I should throw it all away. One of the weirdest encounters of my life. I heard of a story when one guy was riding a bike when he saw an elderly lady trying to cross the street while attempting holding multiple bags of groceries. He put his bike down to help this woman. Just as he crossed the street with her, he turned and witnessed his bike being stolen. Well, that's as good a time as any to scream frick if I've ever heard one. So when I was a kid, 20 years ago, my dad and I were leaving Denny's on a Sunday morning. My dad was holding open the door for a middle-aged white woman who looked like she was coming back from church. She said OHH look aren't to holding the door open for me. Both my dad and I are about as white as you can get. Now this is the 90s and she clearly knew better than to say that in public. Kicker of it all is the white church lady didn't realize there was a black lady behind her. The black lady said excuse me and my dad without missing a beat said did you hear what she called you? He then quickly ushered me away and we left before things got too ugly. I can only imagine how awkward or explosive the next few minutes in that Denny's lobby were. This happened today. My former SO was cutting herself and sending me pictures. This scared the heck out of me and I contacted my local school's counselor to have them check her out. She ended up beating me up. I don't hit girls so I sorta just took it, and making this huge scene in public. She doesn't think she did anything wrong, and I walked away with bloody cuts and bruises. I set down my phone for an hour and when I picked it back up I had 17 new text messages and 14 missed calls. All from her. I told her that I wanted nothing to do with her anymore, but she doesn't take no for an answer. She has threatened to beat me more if I try to avoid her. As of right now, the school have told her that she is not allowed to return unless she is cleared as mentally stable by 2 different doctors. This terrifies me that she is this dangerous. I am 100% afraid now to leave my house. She has been known to stalk me before and she is threatening to beat the heck out of me more. I am a nice guy, and I want to physically defend myself, but I will be socially vilified if I touch her even in defense using minimal force. I am fricked. Ned Stark. My best friend was having a horrible day, so I took her and her 3 kids to a nice restaurant to give her a break. When we were almost finished eating, she pulled a 1.5 foot long hair out of her mashed potatoes and nearly puked. I read this as your friend pulled out her foot and mashed her potatoes, which seemed highly plausible given the amount of time I spend on the internet. I'm sorry about the hair in your food though. 2 stories. First story, my buddies and I were at the local Chinese buffet and were up at the counter getting ready to pay. There was a couple in front of us. As we're waiting, I hear the guy say something like, "Crap, I need another $1," and the girlfriend didn't have any money or even have her purse. He said something about being parked all the way on the other side of the plaza. So I pull out $1 and put it on the counter and say, "Here ya go buddy," thinking it's just $1, no big deal. I've been there before, been short on cash etc. The guy turns around and looks at me and says, "I don't want your freaking money." I just stared back, picked my $1 up and he went off to fetch change from his vehicle. Second story is I was at Walmart around Christmas and during the holidays whenever I'm in there, old ladies tend to ask for my help because I'm tall and can reach things they can't. Christmas lights and such. So I'm searching for some stuff my GF had sent me there for, and this older lady comes up and asked if I can help her and I say sure. "What do you need?" and she asks where something was in the store. I can't remember what it was but I said, "Oh, sorry, I have no idea." And she yells, "How don't you know?" I just kind of stare back at her, not really sure why this old lady was yelling at me, and just walk away. She evidently thought I worked there because I was wearing a lanyard with my keys on it. She didn't take into account the sweatpants and hoodie I was wearing. I trusted a client who told me she rushed out of the house with just one debit card to get her puppy to Maya when her other dog attacked it and popped its eye out. Her puppy needed surgery and she could only leave like half the money but said she would pay the rest on pickup. She seemed legit, and the story seemed plausible, so I did the surgery, even though it wasn't a life-threatening issue. Come back to work the next night to find out I was played. They had no more money, and my bosses aren't too happy with me. Basically, I'll never trust anyone's sob story again and I feel used. Tell me you don't have the money and I'll help you figure out a plan. Don't lie to me. Ugh. Telling my friend to break up with a girl who was clearly wrong for him and having her try to kill herself. Twice. Joined the army to serve my country. You will see the world, they said. Just carry this gun, you'll even get paid. Corrected girlfriend during a hand job. I don't have a girlfriend anymore. At least you're getting better hand jobs now. Answered whether a dress made her look fat. Would not recommend. My sister dropped her phone at the top of the stairs. It was about to bounce past me. Instead of catching it, it hit my hand and fell about 2 meters onto tile and exploded instead of gently tumbling down a carpeted staircase. I was the good little employee and told my manager I accidentally sold a bottle of dessert wine past 9 PM. Illegal in my state. I was promptly fired, and nobody would have known if I didn't tell them. Snitches get stitches, homie. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video.